innovating and differentiating yourself and having a unique place and a position in your market, in your industries is probably, arguably, one of the most fundamental things that you can do for your business.
Welcome back to the Take Back Your Biz Summit, where I'm chatting with industry experts on how they have found more freedom, growth, and joy in their businesses by taking back what matters to them. I'm your host, Lauren Black, creative strategist and owner of Bosscation, a business retreat in a box to help entrepreneurs like you get away from your daily distractions to strategically plan and grow your business. So I am really excited for this summit. If you haven't caught all of the other speakers, make sure you head on over to takebackyyourbiz.com, where you can also find information on our massive giveaway and join the challenge that I'll have for you next week that shares about how you can take back your business. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Jim Harrison. So hi.
Hi, everybody.
So Jim was actually one of my design instructors back at UF. And so we've, kept in touch on Facebook since then. And when he, was messaging me about seeing the summit, and I knew that he has so much creative wisdom. So I'm really excited to have him share about taking back your creativity. So Jim is obviously an adjunct design teacher at UF, but also so much more. So he owns his own agency, Habitual, which is an award-winning graphic design studio. And he's known for his Gainesville what's the name of the Gainesville fruit company? Fruit Company. Okay, so he designs these awesome kind of vintage style posters that resemble the old, fruit crates. And they are featured in the Library of Congress. They have won awards and had their own solo exhibitions and are just gorgeous pieces of art. So he'll be getting into a little bit of that story today about taking back his creativity. But he's also very involved at UF, doing the senior creative director and working with the College of Journalism in their agency. You're also involved as the vice president of AIGA in Gainesville. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. I've spent my career trying to infuse as much creativity around the people that I work with as possible. And I'm very fortunate and lucky that my role at UF is basically centered on that. Teaching graphic design at the College of the Arts is only a small part of what I do as an adjunct, but most of the time, whether it's with the agency or with my colleagues across campus, my responsibilities involve helping people understand how to tap into their creativity and helping teams, helping individuals, and helping departments make sure that they can, leverage all the skills that everyone has. And I'm a believer that everyone is creative. We all just tap into it at different levels of expertise. So that's basically what I do.
Yeah. Well, I think, that term creativity is, you need to take it in context. And as you said, kind of, anybody can have that. And I'm in, the small business world I'm involved in. So many times people say, oh, creative entrepreneurs. And some people think that's a limiting term, but you can have a creative business coach that comes up with creative problem solving solutions for their clients. And you can have, people who may not be seen, like a creative lawyer that, works with other creatives and has a unique approach.
Yeah. One of the basic fundamental definitions of creativity is this idea of doing new things and solving problems in new ways. So whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a graphic designer, my background, as you know, is graphic design and visual communications. But at the end of the day, when someone says, what do you do? I generally respond that I'm a problem solver, that I'm a methodical observer of the world. And so I help people connect things in new ways. And generally that involves, issues with communications and branding and design and design thinking. But when you strip all that, professional stuff away, just help people see things differently.
Yep.
And solve problems in new ways. And that's what keeps me going, because I can tap into something that's very basic and very baseline and not get too caught up in whether I'm a graphic designer or a visual communicator or a creative director or, as we see businesses and the business industry embrace design thinking, what they're really embracing is a way of creative problem solving that is smart for business. And that's really all it is, right?
Yeah, definitely. So
I like that we're breaking down all those barriers.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some, ways why is this important to take back our creativity? And for those who maybe think they're not creative, for them to embrace their creativity?
You know, I've got an emotional answer and a logical answer. The logical answer is that it's good for business. Innovating and differentiating yourself and having a unique place and a position in your market, in your industries is probably, arguably, one of the most fundamental things that you can do for your businesses. Long-term success and health, for your own mental health, to know that you're doing the right things and can lay your head down at night and wake up the next day with a fresh challenge and keep your batteries charged. The emotional answer is there's nothing like that aha moment.
Yeah.
Right? You're trying to solve a tough problem. You realize a creative solution and it comes to you in a flash, or someone says something that sparks an idea in your head and you instantly collaborate with someone, and together you or your team or whoever it is that you're with, suddenly it steamrolls and it builds, and before long you're really, really excited. That moment of spark, that never gets old, right? It's like the rock musicians that say, every time I walk out on stage, even though I've been doing it for 40 years, it always feels the same, right? Designers aren't rock stars, at least not all of us. But the feeling of aha, of the spark of creativity happening in a new way that you hadn't considered before, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some ways that people can take back their creativity and work on it?
Yeah. I believe really strongly. I had a great opportunity to learn from some of the innovators there at Disney in Orlando. And they are they're actually very surprising. They're very structured about their creativity. They go about it a very methodical way. And what they talk about is habitual behaviors and habits that you can engage with every single day. It's about having a commitment to seeing the world and behaving and keeping your mind open in certain ways. And I've got a list of behaviors and habits that foster that. And I'll give you one as a really quick example. Fresh thinking is a hallmark for creativity. You've got to be constantly adding in new input into your brain so it can rattle around in there, because you never know, like a collector who goes to flea markets and buys trinkets, you never know when that one thing is going to connect with something else and find a home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So constantly adding new stimulus is essential. It's vital. But you have to do it in a way that you're not looking for an immediate payoff. You're banking things for later, right? Does that make sense? And so habitual freshness might be taking a different path to work one morning, just for the hell of it. It might be reading a book that's not in the genre that you usually read. It might be saying, hey, I need to go and talk to somebody new today. I need to meet and introduce myself and make a new friend, New perspectives, new information, new observations, new experiences. That's all about adding freshness. And it counters the biases and the predispositions and the assumptions that we make because of all the things that we've done before, right? So doing new things keeps our minds fresh and allows us to sit back when we're in those brainstorm sessions or however it is that you might ideate and say, I spoke to somebody a couple of weeks ago who said something very interesting, and it's making me think that blah, blah, blah. It's the fuel that you absolutely have to have.
Yeah.
That's just a good example.
I love going into stores like Paper Source or even Restoration Hardware and just getting inspiration from walking around the store and the colors, the textures, the patterns, just seeing creative things out there also stimulates for me the creative thinking and gets me excited about creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally try really hard not to record it. Like I'm not taking photos. I'm actually forcing myself to look at it, observe it, take it in, make a thought about it right then and there so that I can carry that later, because my memory as I get older needs as much exercise as it possibly could get. But I believe that the idea of observing is more important than recording, right?
Yeah.
If I snap a photograph with my phone, what I'm saying is that I don't have to think about it now. I can think about it later, and unless you're oh, I don't know, one of those design rock stars, and you don't have all the time in the world and you're just gathering and you're going to parse it later, it doesn't really work as well as stopping and being mindful in the moment and really taking the time to say, that's really interesting. Why is that interesting? Oh, it's because of this, this, and that. That's cool. Maybe I can use that as inspiration later for something that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I love that you call it inspiration, because, you know, a lot of times you do see people in the design industry. I've had clients come to me, hand me someone else's logo and say, recreate this for me. And it's like, no, you want to pull inspiration from the world around you and not be copying the other people, especially with something like a logo that's so, you know, personalized for each company.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that's very smart of you to do that.
Thank you. So what are some ways that you have personally taken back your creativity?
Well, before we started, I was just telling you a little bit of a story. You know, the way I was able to come up with the Gainesville Fruit Company wasn't, it wasn't a definite path that I chose with a goal in mind. I was laboring under some creative burnout. I was doing a lot of medical device work for many, many years, more than a decade. And I was starting to burn out, right? And that burnout, being mindful of the burnout and having a conversation with myself, I said, you know, I need to do a personal project. I need to find something that I can express some creativity in a way that's like way far afield from what I'm doing now, and kind of like zag a little bit and help pull me back in the ledge, so to speak. And ultimately, what I decided is that I wanted to do something with typography. I wanted to do something that I had an interest or an opportunity to maybe do some illustration, a lot of photography that I was working with, not a whole lot of illustration. And then I thought, well, you know, it's kind of a wild card. I love Gainesville. I want to stay. I'm staying in Gainesville. I've made my roots here, my life here. So is there a way that I can celebrate Gainesville? You know, because I have a deep, firm belief that designers have a responsibility to their communities to contribute. So I added all those things together and said, oh, you know what? The travel postcards, I could like sort of take local landmarks and sort of take the style of those old travel postcards that had really nice type. And then I thought, the postcards, they all look alike, but you know what? And then one day, as I talk about observation and inspiration, I was working with a friend of mine who was illustrating woodcuts of a story by a pretty famous Florida writer named Bill Maxwell about migrant farm workers loading crates of produce onto the back of a truck. And there was a tree, and there was a farm worker, and there was a truck. There was a fruit crate. And I saw that, and I went, now wait a minute. Those fruit labels are all over the place. I can do any kind of imagery. I can do any kind of type. No two look alike. That's what I need. So I left the idea of the postcard behind, and pretty soon I had Payne's Prairie labels, and I had Swamp label, and I had a Florida Sunshine label, and I had, you know, a Lake Alice label, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And before long, I had 40 landmarks that people here in Gainesville and people that went to school here know and love. And I remember when I had the first 6, I was printing them by hand, and a realtor who was a friend walked into my studio one day, my home studio, and said, well, I sell Gainesville. Can I buy all of these?
Oh, wow.
And the light bulb went off. And then a decade later, I'm selling mail order. I'm selling to gators all over the world, and people are coming to art shows. And that enabled me to A, stave off the burnout, B, leave the studio that I was with and open Meta Visual so that I could do it during the day and not nights and weekends, and carry my clients that wanted to come with me, right? So I kind of merged my side hustle with my career, my job, was able to realize my dream of owning a studio and running a studio, and kind of it all went great. You know, it was fabulous.
That's incredible. And that it started off as a passion project, and who knew the doors it would open for you down the road and be award winning and in the Library of Congress, and just so many opportunities I'm sure opened up to you because of that.
You know, I've been really, really fortunate. And I think a lot of it comes from just being willing to want to make Gainesville a better place through design, through my, you know, humble ability to sort of create and communicate things. And, you know, that's what designers do. They tend to not just make, but they tend to tap into emotional components at some level. as communicators and advertisers and marketers, we're all looking for that thing that is going to resonate with someone internally so that they can feel good about making that decision, right? And one of the things that's a real truth, and I can't quote the research now, but it's been researched scientifically, is that our brains only gather enough rational information to justify the decisions that our hearts and our guts really want to make. So you have to tap in emotionally at some level and then provide the information that helps them justify that emotional decision, whether it's buying an art print from a designer, buying a car, taking a job, getting into a relationship. You name it, swiping your credit card to make a purchase. Pushing the red button, it doesn't really matter. Every decision that we make is kind of driven by some internal emotional component.
So how do we make space in our life and our businesses for that creative thinking, for that emotional connection with creativity?
Mm-hmm. As I've gotten deeper into my career and I've gotten more busy, my calendar kind of looks like Swiss cheese, and it's very often difficult to be methodical about it. So two answers. The first is make time for it. It's like working out. You don't work out so that you can step out of the gym and be buff. You work out because you do it every day. You know that if you eat healthy and you work out and you don't slack off, that over time, the long-term results far outweigh whatever, extra sleep you might be wanting to get that morning, right? So with creativity, if you're constantly engaged with it, you're constantly mindful of needing to, have good habits and good behaviors. If you're constantly trying to make time for it, it will work out. The second thing is more practical. I schedule my own time. So my calendar that's off here on my second screen is chock full of people that are saying, oh, gym's available for this hour and let me book that. And because more people have access to my calendar than just me. So I make sure that I go in there periodically and go, nope, those 2 hours are mine. Don't book this. I need that. I've got to be creative here, and here. And I purposely block out time. And I know that when I am going to need to tap in, I don't take a call. I don't answer email. I focus on, doing what I need to do to be in the best place for creative thinking. And sometimes that's, hey, I need your help. Can you come sit with me and let's talk this through? Can't do it all myself. It doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah. I love shutting down my computer. Sometimes I'm writing and I'm typing up a blog post or something. So I am on my computer, but I'll turn Wi-Fi off. I'll turn my phone on airplane mode so that I can't be taking calls or texts and get interrupted so that it doesn't, take my train of thought away from the flow of the creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so easy. It's so easy. I'm old school enough to remember how things were done as a designer back then, but I'm also old enough to remember when your phone wasn't like constantly dinging and there were no notifications, right? So it's surprising even sometimes I have to slap myself in the morning and say, snap out of it. You need to put that down. That email isn't as so critical that you can't, stay focused on what you're trying to do here. So definitely a slippery slope.
Yep. Now, what has been one, area that you've been intentional with in your business, and kind of how did things change with that?
I focus as much as I possibly can because it is a business. You have to make money and you do have to keep things rolling. But I did try to focus as much as I possibly could on offering and connecting and participating in the community dialogue and being, for example, everything from being a founding member of AIG at Gainesville to making sure that I make myself available for things like the UF Media Properties, WUFT, the public radio pledge drive. Can I do the poster this year and help people get involved? Those sort of things have always been sort of top of mind for me to say, hey, give back to your community, make sure that you're helping make it a designful place and bring emphasis to, how design can contribute. And that has been kind of a driving force for me. And I find that it always makes me feel much better about what I do than, yet another logo or, yet another brochure. Not that those things are bad, but we all as entrepreneurs and business people, need those elements of what we do that feed us, psychologically.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Just keeping your emotional state of mind happy and in a good mindset will allow you to be creative, allow you to avoid that burnout. Even if you have a bad client, or something that's frustrating, or maybe your schedule is a little fuller at one point. But if you're overall in a good mindset, then I think your work is going to reflect it. Your business and your life are going to reflect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You get back what you put out into the world. I believe that very, very much.
So what do you do to plan ahead in your business?
It's interesting, my business, Habitual, my studio now that I'm at UF and have been here for 6+ years, Habitual now exists for me as kind of a playground, right? I can take on the occasional project work during the year that is of interest to me, that allows me to do things for the community and create opportunities to continue to do that. But I'm not driven as much about needing to plan ahead and keep things moving and so forth and so on. But at the agency here at the university, we're a fully fledged, fully integrated strategic communications agency doing work for some of the biggest brands in the world, people like Procter & Gamble and Best Buy and McDonald's and stuff like that. And those kind of large projects, advertising agency kind of projects, that schedule thinking is always about thinking about what's ahead. It sounds like a bit of a repetitive answer, but being mindful and being willing to constantly dedicate time to setting everything else aside and thinking about the future and being methodical and what's a good way to, repetitive. We have weekly management meetings every week here. We've got meetings of the key professional leaders that are forward-thinking meetings, more than once a month. And those are all opportunities for us to kind of put our heads together and compare notes and say, where are we going? What do we need to do? So it's a habit. It's a commitment to habitually considering what's coming next, so that we don't stay so focused on what has to happen next today, right? What's the deadline this week, that we lose sight of the things we need to be doing this week to guarantee that we've got opportunities coming in the months to come.
I love that you do kind of combine forces there. So I know that a lot of my audience are solo business owners and don't have a studio around them full of people. So what could they maybe do to have those creative conversations?
Yeah, sure. Well, another bit of freshness is, changing your environment. We sit in the same place every day. We sit in the same chair, at the same desk, at the same computer. And as we sort of back away from our monitors and go, I need to think creatively here. Part of the problem is that, your mindset is kind of locked into the environment that you're in. And one of the easiest ways to sort of like short circuit your brain in that way is to get up and get in the car and go down and get a cup of coffee, take a notebook or take a walk, or, go somewhere for lunch you've never been before, and give yourself the time to sit and think about these things, and just jogging your brain's stream of input and creating, a fresh stream, so to speak, is a great way to sort of what we call lateral thinking. You're not being carried forward in the stream of your day-to-day, moment-to-moment, activity in your brain. You're actually forcing your brain to move sideways a little bit and get out of that flow, so that you can go, oh, I never noticed that before. This perspective is new to me. I'm now seeing that there's a relationship here that wasn't there before. And that's just general creative thinking. It doesn't matter the problem that you're trying to solve. Once you can kind of like get sideways with your brain a little bit, suddenly a whole world of like interesting possibilities kind of open up. And whether it's a business strategy, whether you're trying to figure out how to make your kids' school schedules work, or whether or not you're trying to sort out, what's next for your business, or trying to make that, critical breakthrough that's going to allow you to innovate something key to what you do and do it better and bigger.
Yeah, well, that's totally how I came up with Bosscation. Was, I was on the verge of a burnout, knew I needed to have some type of change in my business. And I wasn't looking to start a new business, but I got out of my office. I was still at home, set up a table in my living room, had my sliding glass doors with dry erase markers, it's giant, dry erase boards, and, shut down the computer, turned off my phone, and just was in a new thinking space. It wasn't a completely new space for me, but I wasn't used to working from that spot, and just getting away from the day to day and getting out pen and paper and just, writing instead of being on the computer. And that's when I had so many aha moments that I knew I needed to recreate that for other business owners. And, finding that problem, that creative problem solving of how can I find a better way for me and my business to work? And then how can I help other business owners as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that for a lot of us that it's not a linear path, right? You didn't say, hey, I'm going to burn out unless I find a way to inspire myself and inspire other people, right? The thinking never works that way. It's, wow, I feel the pressure of burnout looming. I need to do something different. And then ultimately your passion for something kicks in, your subconscious kicks in. And the moment you start to have more than one aha moment back to back, you realize that you're on a very interesting train of thought, and the ideas kind of build themselves to a degree. You're just there facilitating it as the person involved, whether you're by yourself or with a team. And the one thing that's truthful in my experience for a lot of these kind of conversations, you and I have a commonality in that it was burnout that was the pressure to start this. But it's very interesting to me, and I think it's very fundamental, that when you apply passion to things and situations like this, it creates magnetism. People simply recognize it, even if they don't understand it, right? They want to come and they want to look over your shoulder and see what you're doing, because the one thing they know to be true, that their eyes and their ears are telling them, is that that's someone that really cares about what they're doing. And so I want to learn a little bit more about that. And whether it's, a potter at a wheel making an amazing vase, or a designer building, an identity system for a Fortune 500 company, or an entrepreneur sort of innovating something, that activity and that willingness to engage in creativity, when you combine it with passion, people will gather. People want to hear more about it. They want to be a part of it. They want to tap into it. They want to know how you did it. They want to, and that's all good for business. That's all good for business.
Yeah, it's infectious. It's like when if you're smiling at someone, they're going to be more easily, to smile. They're going to pick up on that. And so, yeah, if you're passionate about it, it is going to rub off onto those around you. And people want to work with people who are passionate. You want to make sure that the person you're hiring for your design work or to do your marketing campaign is a part of your team and isn't just there for the paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. The word I also use when I'm not calling myself a problem solver is advocate. Designers are advocates, and sometimes that means doing amazing work as if you were an employee and a part of the team. And sometimes it means a little bit of tough love. Sometimes it means, I want what's best for you. You're paying me to guide, to a degree, this effort of communication and brand building. So I'm here to tell you that this is going to hold us back, but there's opportunity here that we're not taking advantage of. So advocacy and passion are a big part of it too.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Well, I think that it goes into other areas as well. You can have a copywriter that needs to have that same passion and advocacy to make sure that even though their client wants a certain about page, if it's not meeting that person's client's needs, then, the copywriter needs to step in and say, hey, we need to, think things through here.
That's right. And that's, I think, the reason why most designers seek those clients that are looking for partnership.
Yeah.
And it's the reason why consultants have the title that they do, because at some point you want a client who says, I need your opinion. I need your best advice on this because I'm not sure, I'm not an expert, versus the other kind of clients who are like, well, I already know what I want. Here it is. I just need you to do it in a different kind of way. Or I've got the idea. I just need you to execute it. Those clients never get off the ground with me. I'm just that's not my wheelhouse, and I'm not the right designer for you.
Yeah. I had one of my favorite clients was one that she filled out my whole questionnaire, and then she sent me her Pinterest board, and the personality I gathered from her questionnaire was completely opposite of what she had pinned from Pinterest. And so I created some mood boards, and some with her style and then some with what I felt should be her style. And she came back and she's like, oh my gosh, you know me better than I know myself. These things you created are so perfect for me. And she went with my direction. And then same thing for the logo. She had pinned all of these logos with scratchy handwritten text, and it just didn't fit with her personality or the mood board we created. And so I ended up doing a whole different direction than what she had pinned. And once again, she was blown away that like I knew her better than she knew herself. But for me as a designer, it was helpful that she was willing and open to going with something opposite of what she had pinned on Pinterest.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and those become the breakthrough moments when you engender a lot of trust by saying, hey, I'm here to talk about you and your brand. I'm not here just to make your brochure or make your logo. This is something bigger than that. And so whenever any graphic designer sort of transcends the visual, and that's the reason why I chose the name of my studio, Metavisual. It's like metaphysical, but we're sort of moving past visuals into strategy and advocacy and these sort of things. But anytime you can take a client on that kind of journey and make them recognize the value in what you're doing, you move from being a graphic designer to being a strategist. And that's when a lot of doors open up for visual communicators.
Yeah. And it's all a journey, you know, it's always constantly learning and growing and trying to improve your creativity. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Now we do need to wrap up here. So I wanted to ask one final question, and that is, what steps could people take today to take back their business, take back their creativity?
Make the time. You know, I mean, yes, there's only 24 hours in a day, but if that is a labor that's sitting on your shoulder, like I got to get to that. I know that I need to spend time doing that planning, or I know I've got to come up with a better idea. It's easy to say, I know I've got to. It's another thing to say, you know what, I'm not taking any calls for 2 hours on Monday afternoons until this gets done, you know, or every morning from 8 till 9, it's me, coffee, and a pencil and a piece of paper, and this is going to happen. You know, it's a willingness to make the time, despite all the pressure externally, to give that time up for all the other stuff that's going on. You know, at the end of the day, that creativity is what's going to fuel a lot of your business thinking. And if you run out, if the tank runs empty, it doesn't matter if you've got 50 hours a week free, you know, it's not going to be the kind of work that's going to keep your lifeblood pumping for years to come.
So good. So good. So thank you, Jim, so much for sharing with us. There are so many great tidbits of information that people can take to be able to inspire creativity, even if they think that they're not a creative. You know, you've said it's a skill that we can work on. So absolutely.
Absolutely. It's a set of behaviors and a set of skills, and they're actually all pretty simple and pretty easy. It just takes discipline. You know? Yeah. And one of my favorite quotes is by David Mamet, a very famous playwright. He wrote Glengarry Glen Ross and a lot of, you know, very famous plays. And he did a master class, and he said, I'm just as confused as you are. I'm just in the habit of doing it more often. I think that's a really great way to say, like, it's all messy. I say it all the time. Creativity is just messy. You just have to be willing to plow through it. And then the more you do it, the more you feel comfortable with the process, and the more you trust that process to pay off for you. It's as simple as that. It really is.
Yeah. So we'll let it end on that, because that was a good note to end on. So thank you so much for being here. This was wonderful catching up with you and, you know, chatting with you. So for those who are listening, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and let us know what you do to take back your creativity. And make sure you tune into the rest of the summit interviews over at takebackyourbiz.com, where you'll also be entered into our massive giveaway. So that's all for now. Bye.
Thank you.